do you need to take supplements in order to lose weight and gain health? So, no is the easy answer. So, no, I don't recommend taking any supplements, and that might be protein supplement or a mineral supplement or a vitamin supplement, apart from one. Okay, there's only supplement, one supplement that you absolutely need. So firstly, the reason why I don't recommend you don't need supplements is the reason why there is such a large supplement industry is because it's an industry. The foods that you eat, if you eat the right foods, the foods that I recommend, then you won't have any deficiencies in anything, because the whole reason why the food industry exists the way it does is because of marketing. So yeah, so you get marketed to about a deficiency, and then that makes people scared, and then that creates a industry around a certain deficiency. So for example, it's supposedly, there's protein deficiency, so you need to supplement with protein powder or whatnot, or whatever it is. But there's never ever been a reported case of protein deficiency, ever. So you don't need to supplement, okay? So I recommend a plant-based vegan lifestyle and diet based on a high energy performance, high sugar diet, foods. So essentially rice, fruit and sugar. So big bag of white rice here, empty because I've eaten it all, and some fruit. So it is true that if you're living on a supposedly a plant-based lifestyle, you can become deficient in one thing, okay, and that is B12, okay. So I've got some vitamin B12s here, and I've got a multivitamin bottle here. So I don't recommend multivitamins and minerals. You don't need to take these. These are just for prop. So you don't need to take them. There's no evidence to show that taking a multivitamin helps. The evidence either shows nothing happens, or it actually can lead to imbalances in the body, because this isn't normal. Having concentrated amounts of certain minerals and vitamins in the body, it should come through the food naturally, and it can actually make people think that it gives them a false sense of security. For example, in older people who, if they supplement vitamin D, for example, it can give them a false sense of security that their bones are now stronger than they ever were, and then they can fall and break a bone. So I don't recommend that. However, I do recommend supplementing vitamin B12, and specifically methylcobalamin B12. Okay, so methylcobalamin. So there's 4 different types, there's 4 different types on offer, so to speak. 4 natural different types, and I recommend methylcobalamin, and I think that's the consensus now, that is the best source of B12. And the reason why you need to supplement B12 is because B12 is made by bacteria. So no animals, no fungi, and no plants can make B12. Only bacteria that would naturally occur in the soil that uses cobalt from the soil to produce B12. So in terms of rates of B12 deficiency, most people are not plant-based and vegan in the Western world. It's a very small amount of people who are. But there are many people in the West, and I think it's definitely underreported, or misdiagnosed, and there are more people who are B12, but the symptoms quite often get diagnosed as other diseases such as multiple sclerosis, just because the symptoms can be quite similar. And I think one of the ways that you can test is just to increase the B12, methylcobalamin B12, in your diet, in your lifestyle, daily routine or weekly or monthly routine. So yeah, there are a lot of people who are B12 deficient and eat meat. And the reason why people who do eat meat, and why you get it if you eat meat, is because the B12 is inside the animal, because they've consumed the B12 in their life, and now it's in the body parts: fish, meat, dairy, egg, all this animal products. And the reason why, if you're vegan, plant-based, and you may be becoming deficient, is just the disconnect from our environment. So you find the bacteria in the soil, and because we over clean, so the vegetables, for example, fruit and vegetables, they're very clean before they get to our mouth. We clean off all the dirt in the soil, and then we peel them, and also the herbs and pesticides that we spray as well on our produce, that can also lead to deficiency. So I would recommend being on the higher end of the scale of how much you want. So there's not an exact figure for deficiency, but in terms of the units, it's about 200 or below 200 is considered to be on the low end. So I would always recommend being in the range of at least 500, and yeah, I recommend it as a tablet. There is evidence to show that tablet form does work. So this is a little tablet here, and you can also take injections, which injections for B12 do work, but just like me, that can be scary for a lot of people, the association of needles, and that can be painful. Having a B12 injection maybe 4 times a year, even though it's not that much, it's painful and it's scary. So I would probably recommend B12 you take, it's up to you. You can take a tablet every day, once a week, once a month, but I would definitely recommend being on the higher end of the scale of terms of how much you take. So a day, for example, every day, maybe at least 200 a day, maybe a month, 5,000 a month, because I definitely think the way forward is to be, the best way to go is being on the high end of the scale, as I say, of the normal range. So at least 500, and maybe up to about 1,000 or 1,500. So yes, anyone can suffer from B12 deficiency, and we see that. So everyone in society can suffer from B12 deficiency, whether you eat lots of meat or you don't eat any meat. And it's very important to know that B12 is from bacteria, and it's not from the actual animal that you're eating. It's the bacteria. So there's bacteria as well in our bodies, in our mouths, in our digestive system. There are that produce B12 as well. And as I say, the modern world is disrupting the natural balance of having B12 in the healthy amounts that we should in our bodies. So you don't need to supplement anything else other than B12. And with B12, yes, it will help you to support your body in being healthy. So, for example, developing healthy red blood cells, which can then be used to make you go fast while you're out on your bicycle. Okay. So, and anything you do. So, if you keep your B12 levels in the normal range, and if you're worried about your B12 levels, go and get them checked. There's two different things you have to take into account as well. There's your body stores of B12, which can become depleted if you are low, and there's also just the day-to-day blood levels of B12. So even if your blood levels test normal, you can still be depleted. Even though the body uses a very, very, very small amount of B12 every day, every week, every month, it can still become depleted over several years. And say that's not because I eat meat or because I'm vegan. It's just the world that we live in now, because what we do. So it's easy, just take a little pill, methylcobalamin. I wouldn't recommend. I think if of all the 4 sources of it, I think that's the best. And I think a lot of B12 symptoms of B12 deficiency get overlooked and wrongly diagnosed as other diseases, just because the symptoms can be so similar. So if you're having a symptom of B12, then it might be a good idea to get your B12 levels checked as well, just to make sure. And I'll do other videos, so like and subscribe, and that way you'll be able to find out what foods I recommend to lose weight sustainably and regain your health. So if you didn't know about B12 and why it's important, so that's just one of the main reasons. For B12 does a lot, but one of them is to develop healthy red blood cells that are the right size, and so you can get this disorder, little b. You get a disorder where if your B12 levels are low, your immature red blood cells. So red blood cells should live about 3 months before they die, planned cell death. And if you have low B12 levels, your blood cells can become fewer, but the ones that you have are larger, and that's not good for your health. Okay. So I say check out the other videos on the channel and find out how I'm always lean and healthy, and so you can be, because I'm human and so are you. And yeah, I always feel full of energy, and that allows me to go out on my bike, cycling, doing adventures, going on adventures out into nature, and perhaps, immersing myself in the world that we once lived in, where we didn't create imbalances in our bodies, in our health, which I think we do from the foods that we eat, and naturally it makes sense that having a concentrated supply of vitamins causes imbalances. Okay. So yeah, I'm not suffering from all of these chronic diseases that we see now in the West, and that's because I don't live like most people live, which is causing all of these problems. Okay, so just a simple lifestyle change to, I think a plant-based vegan, high sugar, high carbohydrate, low fat, low protein, no oil diet means that you don't need to worry about any of the vitamins and minerals apart from B12, but that is for everybody. It doesn't matter what your diet is. And yes, you'll get imbalances from eating the standard Western diet of high protein, high fat, high animal protein animal products. You will get deficiencies because most people are not vegan, and a lot of people are deficient in in some, or they're deficient in some mineral or vitamin, or they're unhealthy in some way. And everyone, if the world was vegan, if everyone was vegan, plant-based, and lots of people were still ill, then yeah, we'd be able to say it's because of that. But most people are not vegan, and everyone is sick and getting fat and unhealthy. So it's not veganism, is it, that's causing that? So like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one. Thank you for your time.